Blog Talk Radio. Good morning and welcome. You are tuned in and listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I'm your host. My name is Sharona. Hey, thanks for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. We've been a bit out of pocket for a couple of months. I've been sick. My family's been sick. We've just had a lot going on. Haven't been able to do a show, but I'm so happy to be back with a great show today. Three wonderful guests to bring you guys. First up, Lisa London, one of our fantasy football gurus. We're going to talk some Miami Dolphins. Is Dan Campbell the answer? What's next for the Miami Dolphins? We'll talk some Ndamukong Suh. We'll talk about Ryan Tannehill, and we'll talk some fantasy football. And as we go through the show, we're going to be touching upon the LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly situation. We'll discuss what Herm Edwards had to say about it. So you'll get Lisa's thoughts, and then we're going to have Ben Troupe, former Florida Gator and NFL tight end. Ben Troupe is going to join me in my second segment talking college football. We'll talk about Will Muschamp to the South Carolina Gamecocks, Dabo Swinney and the fantastic job he's doing at Clemson. And then we'll round out the show with Jennifer Eakins, our Denver Broncos correspondent. We talk a lot about Peyton Manning here. What's next for Peyton Manning? Is Brock Osweiler the hunk? Brock, is he the answer? What's going on with the Broncos? So, big show. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. A lot to talk about. First up, Lisa London, so stay tuned in.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
This is no democracy. It is a dictatorship. I am the law. If you survive camp, you will be on the team. If you survive.
You are arrogant, hot-tempered, entirely too bold. I like that.
All right, welcome back. As promised, I'm joined now by my good friend and yours, Lisa London. We're going to be talking some Miami Dolphins, some fantasy football, and if time permits, hopefully time will permit, we're going to touch upon the Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick incident, quote-unquote incident, and I'm going to try and get her thoughts on LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly, and what Herm Edwards had to say about the situation. So without further ado, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Always fun to be on the show.
Yeah, well, as everyone knows, and as you probably know, this is my first show back since I was off for way too long. I was sick, and my family was sick, and we're dealing with a bunch of stuff. So it is absolutely my pleasure to have you back on. As I think you were on my last show, so I think it's only fitting that you're on this show as well. And I'm always just so thankful to have you on because not only are you just an outstanding sportsman, you're just a good person too. You're a good soul, and I'm just thankful to know you. So let's talk about the Dolphins. Your Dolphins.
Thank you.
Give us a little bit of an update. We're going to talk in a few minutes about Ryan Tannehill's future, but what's going on? What are your impressions on the season?
So you notice she buttered me up with nice words before she's like, and now let's talk about something depressing.
Exactly. You're on to me. Oh no.
So I Look, as I've stated many times, the Dolphins exist to crush my hopes and dreams. I actually like Dan Campbell because he's sort of changing I like his, let's change the culture of the Dolphins. And last time we talked, I told you how little I did not like the way Tannehill handled the whole locker room thing. It was whiny.
It was not a good look. It was not a good look at all.
It was very whiny, and I expect more. And honestly, he's the right now down here. There is no Tannehill love. A couple weeks ago, I was wearing my Tannehill jersey, and I walked into Best Buy, and the greeter at the door was like, "Really?"
No
he's
way.
Like, he's like, "You don't have problems wearing the jersey?" And I'm like, "Actually, yes, I do. When I wear it and I try and park my car, I'll just totally miss the space and end up in the space next to it."
Now that's funny.
Yeah, he thought it was awesome. He's like, "Yep, that pretty much describes it." So I love Tannehill. I really tried. I tried to be behind him, but man, that kid can't hit the side of the barn.
Yeah.
Standing right next to the side of the barn, it's not good. So I don't know. I don't think we have so many needs right now.
Yeah.
We need, first of all, we need an entire offensive line. So if anybody has an offensive line that they'd like to sell, Miami's shopping.
Well, I think that's a problem across the league. And so if you have any takers, let me know, because that team probably needs a new GM.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, and I think you and I talked about this before. Not only is there an issue with quarterbacks coming out of college, and there's just not that many quality quarterbacks. It's true in other positions too. And I think possibly the second position would be offensive line.
Oh God, finding a 6'0" 300-pound guy who can move fast is not an easy task. So there's not that many of them. It's tough. So it's a tough situation in finding them. There's not that many quality ones, and they're all going. They usually end up going in the tops of the drafts, which, of course, as the Dolphins, we will always pick in the middle of the draft. We'll never be last. We'll never be first. We'll always be dead in the middle, because that's how we finish our seasons. But we need linemen. We probably need corners. Our defense definitely needs help. Do you remember when the Dolphins used to be a defense that was fearsome? I do. Obviously I do. Zach Miller and Jason. And now, but traditionally, more often than not, we've always had like a defense that was. I even remember being a little kid and meeting guys on the defense, and that was our thing forever. And then now it's like Cameron Wake's injured.
Yeah.
Vernon's. Yeah. It's just not. We have Ndamukong Suh. We spent a lot of money on him. We spent all our offensive line money on him. So that's about it.
We didn't talk. We do a little bit of a production thing, just so the show will flow pretty well. I didn't put Sue on there, and this is a little bit of old news, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on what he had to say about not playing around elite talent. I'm paraphrasing badly, but you know what I'm talking about.
Well, Sue's a hothead kind of guy, and stuff like that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I think it's, again, indicative of a problem within the Dolphins. This goes to the end of your production list at the same time with LaShawn McCoy and DeMarco Murray, which is, if you have control of your life, when the 49ers were rock solid under Harbaugh, look, for all the things that you want to take away, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time talking out of turn because they got in trouble.
Yeah.
If you don't have control, when you have that little control and that much disruption in your locker room, that's showing a lack of leadership. Because Sue's not jumping up and being a leader. It means that he has no leader.
Well, he's not a leader type. He's not.
He's a troublemaker, which is fine because some of those guys are going to be. You're going to deal with those kind of personalities. Their job is to, crush people, and then you're going to be, surprised that they act that way. But at the same time, the fact that this is again and again you see these kind of things coming out of the Dolphin locker room, And that's one of the reasons I like Campbell is he's trying to put a stop to it, which is just trying to get this team away from the culture it's had for like the last. I mean, for as much as the Dolphins have been a mediocre team for more of my life than I care to admit, it's sad that this last. I mean, for all the bad coaches and the Dave Wanstead and for all of the things that we've gone through, I don't think the locker room culture. Nick Saban. I mean, we could go through a list of like terrible coaches we've had, one after the other. And now, and at the end of it, though, I don't think our locker room has been this much of a hot mess in my entire life.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, for a portion of that life, it was Dan Marino and going to the Super Bowls and Don Shula, but and you're not going to do that with Don Shula. But even now, I mean, I remember vaguely I think Brian Cox have some locker room issues way back in the day, but I don't remember anything like to this level where it's like every week somebody's whining like a child.
I think in all fairness, though, and we were going to touch upon this, as Lisa mentioned later on in this segment, but in all fairness, did you have a chance, by the way, to listen to what Herm Edwards had to say?
Yeah.
I think in all fairness, and then we can go ahead and talk about that now. I think it's a great time to go ahead and bring up the LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly thing, because it is pertinent, in my opinion, to Ndamukong Suh. This generation of athletes has been so spoiled and so coddled. They are incredibly childish and incredibly selfish.
Yes.
It really is the entitlement generation.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this comes to some of the problems in sports from the beginning, I mean, which is these kids now, there's so much money in sports and there's so much out there that from Pop Warner all the way through the NFL, they're allowed to do whatever the heck they want. And then all of a sudden, now you got grown-ass men and they don't know how to act that way.
It's hard to teach 22, 25-year-olds accountability when it's never been expected of them.
And they've been a rock star their entire life.
Yeah, exactly. And if we get time, and Lisa knows this, if we get time, we're going to touch upon equality and stuff like that with the Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick thing, because I've been thinking a lot about it. We like to, I'm not sure whether equality is a myth or whether it's a utopia. And I say that because as I've been talking about the Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick thing, it's occurred to me that we give lip service to treating each other equally, but we really don't treat each other equally. Right?
No, not at all. So, and that's not the world we live in. And people choose equality or non-equality based on oftentimes silly and arbitrary reasons. Exactly.
So, I think that it's more about respect, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think though that the Dolphins locker room issue is endemic of a problem that is widespread across sports. It's just not to that extent, and we got to see it because of the Wells report.
Okay, yeah. No, absolutely. You're right. And it's been, and like I said, I thought from day one when I saw that clause, and I read that clause about the investigations, the NFL investigations, I don't think that was some kind of slip up by the players. I think that was intentional by everybody to cover up. I mean, it gives them the flexibility that a neutral investigative body wouldn't have given them, and that it was intentional, that nobody wanted a neutral body. And the reason why is because they're like Greg Hardy, Ray Rice, all of these things. Like when I think Mark Cuban once said something along the lines like he doesn't wear a watch because when you make time, you don't need to.
Yeah.
When the world revolves around you.
Yes, exactly.
And you get away with the things you get away with. Of course, like how can you be surprised of the things that they're doing when everything's been covered up? When you get away with doing whatever you want, whenever you want. And what it takes to not have that oftentimes is strong leaders in the locker room, and it's usually other players. older players that come in and are strong leaders, and includes a quarterback has to be able to come in and lead his team. And it takes a strong enough coach to not and a strong enough management to not let this kind of stuff.
I think you raise a good issue. How many, when you're dealing with the entitlement generation, how many leaders are there? You know, I mean, I think that what we're seeing in sports now, and it really is troubling to me because, you know, I've loved sports my entire life, and I'm struggling now, especially with the National Football League and the epidemic of selfishness, and I completely agree with Herm Edwards. You know, I wouldn't want LaShawn McCoy on my football team, point blank, period. Now, have him on one of my fantasy teams. I think that team might have actually been auto-drafted to me, but regardless. And while I appreciate the talent and all of that, I would not want the headache that comes with having a LaShawn McCoy on my football team. But, you know, the flip side to that is we're just seeing way too many.
But on the other hand also, but here's where you're going to see a stronger personality in a locker room be able to have some control. That Bills locker room, I mean, if you can imagine how much has actually happened versus what we've heard with Percy Harvin and LaShawn. I mean, they pretty much didn't they grab what's his name, IK, the guy that knocked out Geno?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
They pretty much have like every problem child in the NFL, and then of course Chris Hogan.
That's kind of a Rex Ryan thing, and
but Rex Ryan can pull it off because he can hide most of that, and he can keep them somewhat in line, although nobody could keep Percy Harvin in line. But even with Percy Harvin being Percy Harvin, you heard very little about it. He just stopped playing. Like, he just disappeared in that locker room, and that's, as much as LaShawn McCoy made the statements he made, Rex Ryan's going to let him make those statements because he's on the other team. Yeah. But he wouldn't be making them about Rex Ryan while he's playing on Rex Ryan's team. He wouldn't be doing what DeMarco Murray's doing.
Yeah.
And that's having enough strength to control a locker room, because you're controlling a locker room of grown men who make gajillions of dollars and can do pretty much whatever they want. So you have to have a certain charisma and a certain ability to earn their respect and keep control. Otherwise, it's just going to get out. You're going to have problems, and that's a very difficult skill to have. And I think that's really where we see so many problems. And it is a problem that's occurred. I mean, throughout the years, there's always been players with problems and trades and stuff like that. And just like I said, it just seems for me, it's not like this is the first time the Dolphins locker room has problems. It just seems like it's the weakest I've ever seen the Dolphins locker room. Like, there's always problem players. There are, without naming names, I mean, being down here and knowing the stories that you find out being down here, there are players that have been terrible, terrible human beings that played for the Dolphins down here. But you know, a lot of it's been kept under control, and they've been kept under control. I just, the locker room seems so weak right now with the don't snitch, and this person's whining about this, and it sounds more like I'm listening to a bunch of 16-year-olds.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect analogy. Let's go ahead and get it back to football. I want to ask you about the running back situation. Lamar Miller, you started to see the talent assert itself. You know this, Lisa, because we're both fantasy football aficionados. But I was a big believer in Jay Ajayi, and of course I was devastated. But so were my teams when he got injured and was on IR for so long. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you like how that's shaped up this year?
Well, the Dolphins running game it's interesting. I'm glad to see them finally go to it. So I don't know what to do with that one on the do they re-sign Lamar Miller or do they let him go? Because it's weird. Even with Dan Campbell, it feels like every coach gives Lamar Miller nothing but negs. Like, it's like, no, we're going to run him more, and then it's like, we're just kidding. And then they'll let him run, and then they're like, no, we were just kidding. And I don't know, because they may go ahead and cut him off and try and go with J.J. And that's an interesting question. It's something we need to do. I mean, the smart thing is to keep Lamar Miller. I mean, I think the talent genuinely is there. if you actually, hand him the ball and
let him have it,
run with it.
Yeah,
that makes him a much better, a more effective runner when you put the ball in his hands. That works every time.
Amazing how that happens, right?
Right? It's just, but because the Miami Dolphins exist to crush my hopes and dreams, I could totally see, what I could see, the Dolphins' move to do will be, is that somehow he'll end up at New England and then become a Hall of Fame running back and win 3 Super Bowls, because that's what happens to all of our players. I mean, Chris Hogan's over with the Bills now, and I think he caught catches against us. I think he's put points on us, because that's what we do. Is we're like, no. Do you have any No, you know what? We don't need you. We'll cut you, Wes Welker, and let's see what happens. I mean, Ted Ginn is catching touchdown. Every player we've ever cut, I think, has caught a touchdown catch against us this year.
Yeah, but you don't want Ted Ginn on your team.
No, obviously.
That was tragic, right?
No. I mean, taking Ted Ginn where he was.
Number 6 overall, my God.
It took him years and years and years to finally get over his being afraid to get hit thing, which is really why he was a terrible receiver. It's because he was terrified of getting hit. So, but I think I would love to see them keep Miller. I would love to see them make it a priority, is to keep the 2 backs as they are and have a strong running backfield that would hopefully go against a nice
What about Damian
guard.
Williams? What do you think about Damian Williams?
I think he's okay. He gets an okay.
Okay.
I think we'll see. We're gonna see what I mean, unfortunately with the Dolphins, it's a mess. It's always a mess.
Yeah.
That's the way they keep their backfields. They never no, let's just get a running back and commit. And that's actually now it's becoming the new trend with that position just becoming, in fantasy purposes, I mean, it's crazy because it's now becoming the throwaway position for teams. And bell cow backs are becoming less and less, and they're just throwing in who do we want to run this one? I don't know. What's the hot dog guy doing? It's you're switching out and you're running 3 or 4 different backs at the same time, which goes back to the whole Chip Kelly thing of DeMarco Murray making his comments. Why do you get a bell cow back and stick him in an offense that you're going to run the way they run? It doesn't make sense. And but that's what the NFL is going to, is everybody wants to be Bill Belichick, who can have anybody be his running back, literally. Bill Belichick could probably win with me being his running back. I hate him, but it's true.
Well, I do think that they have a system that works, and we're putting all the cheating allegations and everything aside. I don't know that anybody works harder to figure out opponents and to work that angle of it than the Patriots and Belichick, and I think that's a big reason for their success. I don't think ever going to get to the point where we're quote unquote streaming running backs, but I agree. I do think the days of marquee running backs. I know personally, as someone who took C.J. Anderson, Jeremy Hill. You can throw LaShawn McCoy in there because he missed some games. It is becoming a more fungible position.
Right. I'm actually seeing in my fantasy leagues, I borrowed from the Fishbowl, and I'm seeing it more now, is a bonus for carries because of the fact that running backs just aren't what they were. And to give them any value versus receivers in fantasy football now, you always have to do a bonus to match out PPR because of it.
Yeah, I think that we'll have to talk a little bit about DFS here in a minute, but I do want to ask you, talk to us a little bit about the pros and cons of firing a coach midseason. Do you want Dan Campbell to coach the Dolphins in 2016, or who will coach the Dolphins in 2016?
I'd like it to stay Dan Campbell, I think. I know, that's probably not the popular opinion. I'm sure the popular opinion is Josh McDaniels or Adam Gase or something. I don't know.
See, I would rather have Dan Campbell over either one of those guys. Right,
and that's essentially where that's my thing is I like somebody who's just been in there that's a grinder, tight end coach to clean up the team and then bring in somebody who is good bring in a good offensive coordinator, bring in a good defensive coordinator, because the head coach doesn't need to. There's so much that a head coach needs to do that doesn't involve those things. That go ahead and bring in people to do those parts, and yet keep Campbell, who's going to come in and hopefully just get this team under control, and he needs to focus on doing those things in the greater picture, and you can bring in other people to do the other things and work it all out. I mean, yes, I would love to see some of the offenses that a lot of these names that are coming up would present, but at the same time, I could see Josh McDaniels, this locker room falling apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I could. It's because...
Or even Adam Gase.
Yeah.
Because he's a kind of a mild
right.
guy.
I mean, Josh McDaniels has had his non-mild moments. I just think it's a hard... years and years of this locker room being under Jeff Ireland and then Joe Philbin has made it not awesome. And it's gonna take a lot to get it back on track. And
it's like the insane run of the asylum,
right? And to get everything and get the team back on track, and to give them that motivation and passion and that real get it together. And I don't know if one of them will do it. Now, like I said, I'm assuming that whoever will be the head coach will be the person I like least. So it'll be some random person.
That's usually the way it goes, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that whoever is actually given the position, like Lamar Miller,
Lamar
Miller will be traded to New England, and then New England will give us some random guy off the street, and that's going to be our new coach, because that's pretty much how it works for the Dolphins.
Yeah. Do you think, of course, I threw Kim Wisenhunt's name out there in a joking manner. Everybody knows I wasn't the biggest fan. I wish him well. I'm glad he's no longer coaching the Tennessee Titans anymore.
No, because he's going to come coach us. Trust me.
Yeah.
That's exactly who we'll end up getting, is somebody like that.
So, do you think, are you in favor? I mean, it seems to have worked a little bit for the Dolphins, although, they won, 5 games, 6 games? Let me pull it up here.
Wait,
the Dolphins have won.
Are we talking about before and after Dan Campbell?
Yeah. Well,
I think they were 1-3, then Philbin got fired, and then they went 4-4. So we're 5-7 now. I think.
Yes.
So we need at least 2 games just to get to 500. But he, at least as a coach, was 500. And come on, I mean, some of those games are against New England. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you can't really be you lost to New England. Denver beating New England was the greatest moment of the year for me, because if I have to lose the perfect season, it couldn't be the Patriots. I couldn't handle that. I just can't. Not to the Patriots. I mean, I really would like it to stand, but I'd much rather it be the Panthers than the Patriots. I mean, God, that would have been terrible. But they're that good. Now that the entire receiving corps is injured, and pretty much the whole team is, I believe, basically with the medical staff, and they're just grabbing receivers from anywhere. I don't know that the Patriots are how well the rest of their season are going to go.
Well, it's been an injury-plagued season for many teams, and
I diversified my fantasy football owning, and I own the most players I've ever owned ever. So, yeah, sorry NFL.
I mean,
Cabot Cove curse is real.
We talked about it Tuesday night. It's becoming a concern to me. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, of course, it affects your fantasy team, and you're like, another injury. Excuse me. But on a personal level, and now that we're more aware than ever before about the long-term effects and all of that, I do wonder,
I actually think that may be why. Which I know people haven't thought of, but okay, so we're more aware of all these injuries and stuff. We have more medical trainers and doctors. I mean, most football games are more well-staffed than the average ER at any given time. Actually, the average hospital, you have, everybody, They're going to take him in the back for an MRI. Wait, you have an MRI machine and you're like, you just have one laying around? Yes. They have so much equipment. They have so much medical. We have so many protocols now that I think that the reason why we're seeing more, quote, injuries is because we're no longer making them get back in the game. I mean, I remember a story of, God, was it the Steel Curtain or the Fearsome Foursome, where one of them played an entire half of a game on a broken leg. Broken tibia. Just kept playing on a broken leg because that's what you did. And now I think with everything being checked out and we'll put you on the bike and knowing what we know with injuries, that if you have a small injury, you can aggravate it and turn it into a bigger injury. I think we're seeing more players being kept out, like, oh, hey, look, we could be a playoff contention. Let's not have you turn this into a big injury. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that part of the reason why, I mean, some of it's just, some of it I personally think is my personal curse to fantasy football players. Sorry, Jordy Nelson.
No, I completely
agree. Like, everybody with, like, broken legs, Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, I have one league where I'm like, can we just have like 20 or 30 injury reserve spots? Because
one of the leagues that we're in, the Flea Flicker league that we're in together. Yes. I've already exhausted all my IR. I can't even put Steve Smith on IR.
Me neither. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm out of spots.
I'm done. Because I had Arian Foster, Le'Veon Bell, Kelvin Benjamin.
I got them all. It's like, oh, yeah. No, I have the full collection. I have one where, DeAndre Levy and Joe Flacco are just hanging out on my bench because both of them ended up I'm out of spots, and it's a super flex.
Crazy.
I was like, right. But at the same time, I also think that a lot of this is we know more about sports science and sports medicine, and there's more people doing it. And I think that, and plus the addition of the protocols, I think more people are getting pulled from games and going through concussion protocols that had them. Mm-hmm. So it feels like there's more injuries because they were always injured. Mm-hmm. But the guy with the hammy that played through the hammy or played through the ankle or played through the concussion is now being held back because he could aggravate that injury, because whatever injury he may have could potentially be aggravated. So now the team doctors are like, well, we're going to sit you out for 2 games. Mm-hmm. Because why continue to aggravate your injury? Mm-hmm. And so you're seeing more and more that it feels like we're getting more injuries.
Yeah, and two, there's more widespread coverage of the games. With streaming and everything, social media means that you can't hide this stuff anymore.
Exactly.
And it's just like in anything else, for like the domestic violence stuff and the bad, all the locker room stuff and everything. Social media has been a game changer in a lot of ways. Right,
and the extreme rise of the popularity of fantasy football, whereas only Miami fans really truly paid attention to what was happening in Miami, and only Jets fans paid attention to what was happening in New Jersey. Now you're paying attention to 32 locker rooms because you have players in all of them. Mm-hmm. And now, all of a sudden, something that happens in one locker room that may be local news that a beat writer covers is now going to be covered on fantasy sports shows and Twitter and everything else, because it's now relevant to a bunch of people who wouldn't have cared before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do. We didn't put this in the production notes, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on the future of DFS. What do you think?
Okay, so I don't know. It's interesting. I know some of the attorneys doing the case. So. Oh
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's a tough one because
it is.
I said from the beginning, it's a little different than poker because there's more people that support DFS than online poker. Mm-hmm. And on top of that,
well, poker is seriously populated by professional gamblers.
Right.
Whereas fantasy, there are certainly your professionals, but there's a whole lot of me's.
Right. Exactly. And I think the first thing that needs to be done somehow, and maybe in the suit, and I don't know the thing that I would assume will be done no matter what, and I believe there's legislation now that they're putting through in Florida to make to carve out and make sure that our leagues aren't affected. Like, because there's a very big. I mean, if you was playing, when you play fantasy, there's a very big difference between daily fantasy sports and playing in like dynasty leagues or even seasonal redraft leagues. Yes. It's a completely different type of. And generally, when you're playing in the leagues, unless you're playing in big money leagues or you're playing in like the World Fantasy Series, unless you're playing in one of those, they're usually home leagues or amicable leagues that you got into through fantasy football sites. It's not a lot of money being exchanged. It's mostly a lot of jibes and fun. I can see where. I can see where some of Irvin's arguments. That's who's doing the side down here is Irvin Gonzalez. I can see where he does the comparisons to online gambling with it, but I just don't. Our regulation against skill-based gambling down here is going to be their biggest problem down here, but because that's a Florida state rule. I don't really look at it the same way that I would look at, say, like craps or blackjack, because I believe in skill-based. Actually, I believe in legalization of gambling. Period.
Yeah, I do too.
I just do. I don't think it serves any purpose to make it illegal. I think it should be here and taxable.
Anytime you try to legislate morality, you're going to get into trouble.
And more importantly, are you really going to sit there and tell me that I can't do this, but you're going to sell me a lottery ticket? It doesn't matter what the odds are of the thing that I'm gambling on.
And Florida's one of the biggest states that sells alcohol. I mean,
it's still my odds of winning everything. When DFS first came out, first of all, if you read anything about it, you had to know that there was a bunch of statisticians and math people that were playing it. Because that was all the articles was about the professional players when it first came out. I used to go out and find Condia or like one of those guys and try and play against him in like one of the dollar tournaments to see if I could beat him just for fun. And the answer, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, is generally no, sometimes yes. Mostly no. But it's like that's that any type of thing you're going to do with a competition, of course there's going to be people that are better than you. Now I understand the analytics stuff they're complaining about, that people are actually using math to do stuff because it's the United States and God forbid you use math to do anything instead of just making it up. But at the same time, I think there's strong argument, the big one that's going to be the most interesting one that's really going to be the crux of this case and will either take down or have to be overcome by all the daily fantasy, was the leak of information. Everything else anybody can do. You can get analytical software and do the same. Like you can get poker analytical software. It's not going to make you a great poker player necessarily, but you can get the software. You could get software to do pretty much anything in the world, but you can't get the stats that they were getting that were alleged. And if that's true, and if those allegations are true, then they have a whole different problem. That's where the RICO stuff comes in, and that's where it gets real ugly real quick. So.
I think that it's really more of trying to figure out a way to justify it in terms of public perception and get that piece of the pie,
Right.
So I can't let you get out of here without us talking about the Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick, and we're going to start.
You're going to hate my take.
Well, we're going to start this equality discussion. It's by no means going to end today, but I definitely want to start it. So I'm going to let you. What is your take on it?
Because I watched it, and it looks like he's actually showing her the hold or the block. And I'm like, honestly, unless it's Ed Hockley, it's Bill Belichick. I think he would do that to any referee. I know everyone keeps saying he wouldn't, but it's the same. It was the same argument that they also used against Sarah Thomas in the first place, which is, you have to be this, a ref and big. And I'm like, have you seen the refs? Like, pretty much, is your name Ed Hockley? No. Okay, then you're probably somewhere between 50 and 70. And they're not. Like Ed Hockley is really there's a couple others, but they're not like the most physically fit, imposing dudes. So unless it's somebody like that, like Bill Belichick would actually probably do that to Tom Brady because he's Bill Belichick. And so I don't know if that's a gender thing. Like I think that's actually Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick, which is like, I'm right. Let me show you exactly why I'm right, and I'm going to show you on you, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything except that's just who I am, because that's who he is. I mean, that's who he's been. It's like Bobby Knight throwing a chair. If Bobby Knight threw a chair and there was a female ref versus a male ref, are you really like going to examine gender, or are you just going to be like, oh, look, Bobby Knight threw another chair?
No, I completely agree, and I do think that it is very Bobby Knight-ish. The video really does show it a lot more clearly. The picture that everybody was floating around on social media was extremely misleading. I don't think that he ever actually physically touched her.
Yeah, no, when you slowed it down and you took that shot, it looks like they were going for a ballroom dance.
Yeah.
But when you actually watch the whole thing in the video in actual real time, you're like, oh, he's bitching about, he's actually sitting there and you could see what he's complaining about.
Yeah.
I mean, not watched it live and taking the clip alone before seeing anything else and just watching it immediately, I was like, oh, okay, so I could actually tell exactly what he's complaining about from his physical visit.
Where his I understand exactly what he's doing. I think that it's a problem regardless of gender.
Right.
Getting that close and getting up in their face and doing that regardless of
he's Bill Belichick. If it was anybody else in the league, I mean, almost anybody else, they'd have a flag thrown against him. But he does that, and he gets away with that, and that's who he is. And he's the evil empire. Like I said, so happy that they will not be the ones breaking the perfect season, because that would just be terrible.
Yeah.
If he never does that, that will make me happy.
Yeah, and I've talked some about the coverage of that incident. We'll probably wait to get into that, maybe with maybe another show or whatever. I don't want to keep Lisa too long, kept her far too long as it is. But I do want to say this: one of the problems that I have with this is that you can't not consider gender when you look at this incident. So many people have been like, well, you know, we shouldn't make this a gender thing. I think we have to make this a gender thing because you have to consider, look, we do this all the time, right? A man can respond to that in a different fashion than a woman can, right? And you have to consider that aspect of it because, you know, I mean, we know how guys are. You know, a male ref can interact in a different, you know.
I think the difference was, and it sucks that she's on the worst officiating crew. Like it just really sucks already that she's on a crew that's under fire. But I think the only difference that really gender would have played is a man could have thrown a flag. And because she's the first woman.
Exactly. And that's exactly what
she's the first woman's ref. She could get punched in the face, and she still wouldn't be able to throw that flag because they would say that
she shouldn't have to. It should have been what crew was she on? I never did find out what crew.
Oh, she's on whatever his name's crew. They just got taken off of Sunday Night Football. It sucks because, I mean, she's not the terrible crew. I mean, she's not the whole but of course she'll end up carrying the burden of it, of the first woman being conveniently on the crew with the most controversies, even though the calls aren't hers.
Yeah, or like this. I mean, you know, Ed Hockley could have given him a nut tap or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because guys interact differently with other guys, and so the problem with saying you can't consider her gender is that it completely takes reality out of the situation.
Well, and I look at it as it's not that I can't consider her gender or consider her gender. I don't consider her gender as far as the interaction that happened. The way I see her gender playing is to the contrary of what everybody sort of like. She's a weak woman. I see it as because she's the first. Like if this was a women's game, like women's basketball or one of the women's football leagues, nobody would think anything if she threw the flag because a women's ref at a women's football league or a male ref throwing a male. But because she's the first of whatever it is, and it's not just gender. It goes to race or anything else, religion. Like when somebody becomes the first, I mean, Michael Sam, like, do you know there are days where I'm like, really, man? Come on. Represent. Seriously, like, come on. Stop with the whining. When you're the first, it sucks I mean, it's great. You're a leader. You are doing so much for the world. I mean, that Jen Walter is amazing. She's done so much. And at the same time, you're the first. So everything you do, I mean, remember, she came under fire for, the boxing thing with her going to the match, is everything you're going to do is going to come under scrutiny. Everything is going to be under, like, you cannot do anything without it being questioned because everybody wants to take you down. So you have to be better than the average human, and you can't respond in the same way that a person can. And she's stuck as a woman. If she does anything that shows any form of weakness or flinching, it's all over because she's a woman and she's weak.
I don't think that it has anything to do with her being the first. I do think that makes it that much harder. But I think that, and again, I think that it all comes down to respect and understanding, understanding who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with. And, it's interesting. We're going to be talking about this a whole lot more. We don't really have time to beat it to death today, but I promise you I'll get my paddle out and we're going to beat it to death in the weeks to come. And I'm going to have Lisa back on here because I can tell she and I are going to have a really good conversation about this.
Yes.
And,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it's definitely the whole equality thing is something, and what got me thinking about it is Herm Edwards. And, I was already sort of thinking about it anyway, and the little Sean McCoy, thing, it's an interesting topic, and I don't have any answers, but I definitely have a lot of questions. Lisa, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Tell everybody out there where they can find you on social media, and what are you working on? I've been a little bit out of the loop. Are you working on any articles these days?
I am. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at LeeDoglaw, LeeDoglaw, and I write for Fantasy Sharks, and I do a weekly article called Grinders and Gambles, which is sort of
very good. You should check it out.
Sort of a both redraft and dynasty patch up your team article, and I do some rankings for them too. But really, the article's probably better than my rankings lately. But, come on out and visit.
All right.
And I would like to thank you very much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure to be on.
It's a pleasure for me, too. And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more sports talk maybe. We're going to talk a little bit more about equality. I'm not sure where we're going to put this interview in the larger scheme of things. But stay tuned in. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. All right, that was Lisa London joining me this morning. Always a pleasure to talk to Lisa. She's so much fun and she's so knowledgeable. Give her a follow out there in the Twitter sphere. Up next, Jennifer Eakins will talk some Denver Broncos. We'll talk about Peyton Manning as Brock the Hunk the answer. So stay tuned in. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. All right, good morning and welcome back. As promised, I'm joined now by Ben Troupe. Ben, former Florida Gator, Tennessee Titan tight end, and just an all-around, he's been doing sports radio for a while. He's just an all-around great guy, and I love having him on the show. I was fortunately able to get some of my favorite people for my comeback shows. So, Ben, thanks so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, all the time, man. Anytime I get an opportunity, to share these radio waves with you, I'm always looking forward to it.
Well, it's always fun to have you on, and you're always so thoughtful and insightful that I do appreciate it. A lot of college football talk. Let's go ahead. By the way, you guys, off the airwaves, Ben and I had a chance to talk about what kind of animal he might be. We might share that with you at the end of this segment. I don't know. We'll see about that. We're going to talk some college. We're going to talk some college football. The playoffs are set. You know, I think you and I talked about Clemson the last time you were on here, Ben, and I told you how much I enjoyed watching them play. Have they? It's amazing to me how well they've done this year.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to Dabo Swinney. I don't think he gets enough credit. Yes, he got. Yes, he did. Get a college coach of the year, and well deserved. But I think but from the time he became the head coach, you can see the culture changing. You can see the players really buying into what he believes and how he believes a team should be run. And I mean, it just he's had the Watsons playing for Buffalo, and he's had the DeAndre Hopkins, and now you add Watson at the quarterback position. And what these guys been able to do this year, man, everybody was waiting for them to lose so they could do the whole Clemsoning, but it didn't happen. Everybody thought they would lose Notre Dame. Didn't happen. Everybody thought they would stumble against Florida State. Didn't happen. And even though North Carolina did get cheated on that onside kick, they would have still won the game. And I me personally, man, I mean, one of my best friends went to Clemson, and like I said, I can say this on the air. I don't want Alabama to win nothing. If anybody got to win it other than Florida, I don't mind it being Clemson. I don't mind it. Clemson is a town just like Gainesville. You take away the University of Clemson, you have no reason to even drive through that city. None. But they're doing a great job, though. They got that great thing.
I have one of my best friends is from South Carolina, actually moving back to South Carolina now, and grew up a Clemson fan, but he ended up going to the University of South Carolina. So now he's a Gamecock through and through. So we talk a lot about Carolina sports and Carolina football in particular, and we talk about Clemson, and they really do have a wonderful tradition. And you mentioned the quarterback position. He didn't make it in the NFL. Well, he's still playing. I think he's in the Canadian Football League. Taj Boyd wasn't a bad quarterback,
Oh, no, he wasn't. Taj Boyd, to me, I think he set the precedent for the quarterbacks coming behind him. I think that's a big reason why Watson chose to go to Clemson. He saw that they didn't stranglehold Taj. They didn't take away his athletic ability, didn't take away his running ability, and he had great receivers to throw to. And Clemson is building a real nice, culture down there that I think it's going to be hard to deal with. They're in a great conference to where they can, they don't play the best talent from week in and week out, but they're a great team in a conference that might not be as deep. And hey, man, you go undefeated, and you do what they've done with a Dabo. I think Dabo Swinney is the foundation of it all. These players love this dude. I mean, I think they'll run through a brick wall for him, and it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Most times you got these coaches, they're all about their contracts, they're all about their money, they're all about making sure it's all about them. Dabo seems to be the opposite. He seems to be the direct opposite of that.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. You think that he's going to stay at Clemson?
The only way I could see him leaving Clemson is maybe to the NFL, because the thing about college football is I think once you've come from a culture like Clemson to where the community rallies around you, not just the team, and the type of guy he seems to be, I think he will look for a bigger challenge. Because I believe that
that makes sense.
He's definitely one of the best coaches in college football. So, and I think too, his players would respect him if he chose to go to the NFL. You go to another college, man, especially another college in the ACC, that would kill those players. Because you got to think, man, as much as people say you shouldn't go to a school because of a coach, well, that's why you go. I'm sorry. You go to that's the only reason why. I went to Florida because Spurrier was the coach. I mean, I didn't love Florida until after I got there. So it's one of those things to where if he chose to go to the NFL to see how he stacks up against those coaches, I think the people would understand that.
You mentioned Steve Spurrier, and of course the big news of I guess a month or so ago. I've been a little bit out of pocket, but the Steve Spurrier. He didn't retire. I guess he resigned is the word that he prefers. I want to ask you about Will Muschamp. That was a surprising hire to me. Let's just put it that way. Will Muschamp, I think, in my opinion, very much underperformed at Florida with the talent that he had there. And I think Auburn went, 6-6 this year. And it was an odd choice. I think if it had been me, if I had been making the decisions for South Carolina, of course they didn't call me, I would have just given Sean Elliott. I would have taken the interim tag off him and let him show me what he could do.
Yeah, I would have done the same. I mean, the Will Muschamp hiring is a head scratcher. Only because
it really is.
It's a head scratcher because it's not as if you don't know what you're getting with a Will Muschamp.
Yeah.
He's a great recruiter. He's going to be able to get some great players in there. But can he utilize, especially on the offensive side of the ball, can he utilize these players in a way that can generate wins, but meaningful wins that can actually put South Carolina in a position to win the East and SEC title? I think when you go to a South Carolina, what Spurrier has done, he's created a winning legacy over there, man. He went 3 years 11-2. When I got recruited to go to South Carolina, the great Lou Holtz had went 0-12 for 2 straight years. And you go from losing that many games to Connor Shaw experienced some great years at South Carolina. These guys are one of the best teams in college football. Till you go to a Will Muschamp, to where, for one, can he appeal to those South Carolina kids like a Dabo Swinney can? Can he appeal to kids who gonna say, well, are you the University of Texas defensive coordinator, or are you the Florida coach, or are you the Auburn defensive coordinator? Because you can't hide from your resume. You can't walk away from the fact that you underachieved, not just at Florida, but even in your first year in Auburn. They were picked to be one of the top teams. Their quarterback was supposed to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. And the defense itself didn't live up to the billing. So, I mean, maybe South Carolina knows something we don't. Maybe they feel as though his best years are still ahead of him, but that was a head scratcher. When I heard Will Muschamp, and at the same time too, Will Muschamp got the job because Rich Rodriguez turned it down. That's who they wanted. But he was like, listen, I appreciate it. Rich Rodriguez's agent said, go to South Carolina, say no, then Arizona has to give you another contract. That's just how it goes. That's leveraging. But Will Muschamp, I wish him the best. Obviously not on that one Saturday, when he plays us. But I don't know, man. I think those kids deserve better, because no matter what, you got to put those kids in the best position to win. And those kids looking up at Clemson right now. They're really looking up, saying, we wish we had what they had.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the recruiting aspect of it. Later on, let's go ahead and talk about that. Of course, Will Muschamp is who he is, and he was a fiery personality at Florida. And in his introductory press conference, he used his wife as a prop, telling South Carolina fans and whatnot, the entire world really, that if you thought he couldn't recruit, you should just look at his wife. And we've seen James Franklin. He very famously said he wouldn't hire an assistant coach without checking out what his wife looked like first. What are as a woman, I guess you can imagine how I feel about that. I think it's disgusting. But what do you think about coaches using their wives as props and those kinds of statements?
I think it shows how far we still have to come as far as like gender equality. I mean, the fact that a head coach could say something. Head coaches get away with things in the public that most people wouldn't get away with in private. You can't say, I got to check out how my assistant coach's wives look. Like what? So if she's not good looking to you, he's not a good coach? Or if you don't think I can recruit, just look at my wife. I think it says less about the appreciation they have for their wives, and more about just trying to please the public. When you demeaning your wife, you demeaning your future assistant coach. If I'm an assistant coach for Franklin, I'm thinking, he did ask me to meet my wife when he met. Like, is he checking my wife out? Like, okay, she's nice. I just think it's one of those things to where, everything shouldn't be said, everything coming to your mind shouldn't be uttered, and your wife deserves far better than that. Listen, Mark Richt saying that his wife is a water girl on the sideline. Use it like that. That's how you can. Listen, my wife is right there. She gives water, which you don't actually have water boys in college. The water just sits there. The trainer's running on the field if you need a TV timeout. But trying to keep your wife close to you, nothing wrong with that. But using your wife as a headline, because that's a headline generator. Now your assistant coaches get to ask the questions like, well, how long have you been with your wife? And, you know, can I see a picture of her? I think you answering things that shouldn't have to be answered, and I think it's unnecessary, unnecessary attention that's being brought to a situation that has nothing to do with anything. I think they wives and those assistant coaches' wives, they deserve a lot better than that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a level of creepy that I think that we definitely don't need. It's certainly interesting. Interesting stuff. The playoffs are still at 4. There's still a lot of resistance to increasing the playoff field. Do you think that we're going to see that in the next 5 years?
I do because you see it used to be the number 1, number 2. Now it's the number 1 through number 4. But the number 1 through number 8 are separated by strength of schedule. When did you lose? How did you lose? Was it a meaningful loss? So, you know, and the thing is, some of these, and another reason why it's probably going to get extended, because all these conferences don't have conference championship games. Some of them are just decided during the regular season, and because I get an extra game on national TV, and I'm the only one on TV, I get to prove myself in that way. So I believe because, you know, of how it's shaped out the first 2 years, it's probably going to end up going to 8. But I think what they're doing right now, you know, they're doing it the right way. What I would say is this. They need to stop doing rankings so early in the season, especially when they don't matter. You know, you need to start doing them around week 7, week 8, when people really start separating themselves, because the number 1 is not going to be the number 1 from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. I think the preseason rankings is what really mess everything up. Give everybody a clean slate. Teams like Baylor and TCU, they don't have a chance, especially when they lose a game. Because now, you know, it's one of those things like Clemson actually had to run the table. But what if Clemson is starting out the year at number 25?
Yeah.
Do they even make it all the way up to number 1? You know, things like that. So I just think these young men need the best opportunity to compete for a national championship. Don't take that away from them because somebody feels as though I'm number 10 when I probably should be number 2.
Well, they say perception is reality, and there's so much truth to that. When these early rankings definitely are detrimental to teams. Every season's new, right? And a lot of the early rankings is based on, you know, what happened in previous years. Well, it's a new year, and it's definitely hard to make those comparisons. I sent you this list of the easiest recruiting jobs. I thought was fascinating. Let me see who wrote this. It says Recruiting Nation. I'm not exactly sure. ESPN put it out. I agreed with a lot of it. Do you think that the Georgia Bulldogs job is I don't think that's the easiest recruiting job in the nation. I just do not.
I don't think it's the easy recruiting job. I don't think it's the hardest. But I don't think it's the easiest. I think nothing is easy, man. Listen, these colleges are getting better. Georgia used to have to worry about Clemson or South Carolina because they were so much better than them. Now, kids trying to go to Clemson over Georgia, South Carolina over Georgia. So it's one of those things to where how can I say something is easy when I'm competing against guys? Hold on one quick second.
All right. Well, Ben's taking a quick break. I'm talking to Ben Troupe, former Florida Gator. I think he's back. Ben, are you back with us?
I am back. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
No, but I was saying, with the Georgia recruiting thing. Listen, Georgia is it's one of the best jobs in football, not just college. Mm-hmm. I can say that. No, it's not easy, man, because like I said, you have to find a way to put yourself in a position where what is intriguing about Georgia besides the tradition? You can't say national championships. You can't even say SEC championships. Where Clemson might play the national. South Carolina, they got to build from scratch again, but they had to win the tradition down there too. So for somebody to say it's easy, that's probably you would have to see the credibility of the person who's saying it and why they're saying it. Maybe somebody who don't like Georgia might be a South Carolina fan. Or, who knows? If it's a Florida fan, it's definitely biased. But it's just one of those. It's just one of those things to where Georgia always going to get that ink. They're one of those teams that benefit from, the recruiting class they get and the potential. Georgia is the best team on paper you're going to see. But when the game starts rolling out, things start happening to that team. I mean, because the Mark Richt going to Miami, I don't think that's a coincidence at When that job opened up, I said, if anybody's going to get it, once Mark Richt got let go and not resigned from Georgia, I said he's going to Miami. He's going to Miami.
Yeah, well, that made sense, right? And you knew Mark Richt was not going to be out, of a job long. What do you make of all the brouhaha surrounding LSU and Les Miles and all of that? How crazy was all that?
I think that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life because Les Miles he's not the type of coach that you come across, very often. People live in the here and now, and I think they're looking. His past and resume should speak for itself now. If anybody deserves to have what they have, it's Les Miles. Yes, they didn't have. It's funny. Everything started going haywire once they lost. Leonard Fournette is the best thing since sliced bread. He's a Heisman Trophy front runner. But then when they got to start throwing the football, you play Alabama, you look mediocre. Les Miles needs to go. People are crazy. You get rid of a Les Miles. Les Miles deserves to have his pick of the litter, not just in college but the NFL. He's that type of coach. And I think too, the lack of appreciation for a guy like Les Miles baffles my mind because I believe these coaches understand. Not the coaches, the athletic director for LSU. He needs to check himself. Making that man wait until after the game to decide he's gonna be our head coach. Who else you gonna get to replace him? Most coaches ain't got that type of resume, and you're gonna be like, "Well, I'm gonna replace it," So I didn't understand the attitude of the athletic director because the athletic director should know. Nobody knows you as an athletic director. They know less. The only reason why we know you because you did a press conference after the game. They don't know you like that, and you get to be considered one of the best ADs in the country because of a Les Miles. It's not the other way around. Yeah,
and I understand. I guess Jimbo Fisher is kind of a hot new. He's kind of like the new hot chick on the block, so to speak. And there's a lot of certainly a lot of media love for him. But I don't see, and there was some criticism there. I don't think replacing Les Miles with Jimbo Fisher is a win for anybody.
No, I don't even consider Jimbo Fisher and Les Miles to be in the same category as far as coaches. I think Jimbo Fisher benefited from a great player in Jameis Winston. He benefited superbly from
Kelvin Benjamin, and they had some nice players.
Look at what happened. Yeah, and the Dalvin Cook. Jimbo Fisher is a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. In defense of LSU, they did definitely, in my opinion, they underperformed this year. I thought they were a better football team than Alabama. At least, maybe. I just did. I thought overall they were a better football team. They didn't have the wins to show for it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. I do think that this whole thing with Les Miles is, I don't think that it's over. Let's just put it that way.
No, never that. Listen, I've never understood how some coaches so much get so little respect, and you got coaches that so a lot of respect. I mean, I don't get that, but he don't forget it. He ain't gonna forget that. He might be going up against the AD. You know what? You an enemy right now too. So, and a Jimbo Fisher, I said this before the season. Jimbo Fisher said something after the game. Since the game, the Georgia Tech game, he said it's not about winning. You can't say that in the SEC. You cannot say it's not about winning and keep your job. Why? Because you lost. It was about winning when you went 12-0 with Jameis. It was about winning when you lost one game in the season. Coaches benefit from the school they're at and the conference they're in. I think Jimbo Fisher. Oklahoma name? I can't think of his name.
I don't know. You cut out a little bit. What's
the head coach of Oklahoma name?
Oh,
I can't remember his name.
I'm drawing a blank.
Bob Stoops.
Yes.
I believe that unless Bob Stoops wins another championship, I believe he's gonna be just like Jimbo. Jimbo Fisher gonna be the Bob Stoops of the ACC. He's gonna win a lot of games. He'll never win another championship though. I don't see that ever happen again.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the National Football League, then I'll let you get out of here. I know that you got a busy day ahead. Ben played in the league, and so he's got a familiarity that a lot of people don't have. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this whole LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly, and did you have a chance to hear Herm Edwards' rant about the situation?
Yeah, I did. I did hear it, and I appreciate Herm Edwards' stance, but I also understand LaShawn McCoy's position. LaShawn McCoy did what coaches do all the time. A coach can blast a player to the media any day of the week, and for as much as he wants, for as long as he wants. And guess what they'll say? Hey man, that's just a coach disciplining. But the thing is, players, especially a guy like LaShawn McCoy who doesn't bite his tongue, he was just venting. He said something most people don't get. They said, can Chip Kelly shake your hand? She said, Chip Kelly can't do nothing with me. He said, because Chip Kelly is a smart dude. I know what he's trying to do. You know how many people are going to interpret that? Everything is everything. If they shake their hand, everybody don't read the newspaper or watch sports or listen to sports talk radio. So LaShawn was like, you know what? He did me dirty. We don't got nothing to say. He dealt me away because I wasn't one of those guys that just sit back and don't say nothing. I'm a speak up type guy. He don't want that. So, and people always say Chip Kelly, and mind you, but I also agree with her. It's not about you though. You don't, because a young kid that's looking up to LaShawn McCoy, he think that's okay, and it's not. Because you alienating yourself because you're making it all about you and Chip Kelly when it's about the team. LaShawn McCoy is a great player. Chip Kelly is a good coach. But listen, y'all talked about this in the offseason. We in week 13, 14.
Yeah. Just
talk, and I think the media, while they weren't looking for a headline, that's what LaShawn McCoy gave them.
Yeah.
And now that's gonna be it. So I just think that I understand LaShawn McCoy's position because he's venting his frustrations, but he's a professional. And and I understand Herm Edwards because Herm Edwards don't want these people thinking this is a team game. This isn't tennis. This ain't golf. You depended upon those other 10 guys on that field every time you out there. So I understood both sides, and I appreciate Coach Herm saying it the way he says it because he says it in a way that it's unavoidable.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too, and I don't always agree with Herm Edwards, but I definitely agreed with that. And I understand listen, I appreciate guys who speak their mind too, who speak up and who don't, fart out those cliches and, I like guys who keep it real. Yet on the other hand, LaShawn McCoy just, in my opinion, comes off looking really petty. And I feel like, and I said on another segment, I said I wouldn't want LaShawn McCoy on my football team, and I stand by that. He's extremely talented, but I can understand why Chip Kelly would have wanted to ship him, out of town. And Chip Kelly has come out and said, that he regrets how it went down. It wasn't handled properly. But the thing is, Chip Kelly has never, ever, to my knowledge, bashed LaShawn McCoy in the media. Now, I agree. I agree with you on that. I mean, listen, it's a business. And LaShawn McCoy, listen, Shaquille O'Neal said he found out he got traded from the Lakers on SportsCenter. So, and LaShawn McCoy seems to think that he's saying it with like somebody owes him something, and nobody owes you anything, man. Like, listen, you got dealt away. So did Deshaun Jackson. So did Jeremy Maclin. And guess what? They thriving. Deshaun's thriving in Washington. Obviously, Jeremy's thriving in Kansas City. You move on, man. I think because you'll become more of a gimmick, and people look at you as more of a gimmick than your talent. LaShawn is extremely talented, but at the same time, it's a bunch of guys extremely talented. The young man they got from Florida State that backs him up. Hey, man, he's just as good as LaShawn McCoy as far as production this year. So I just think, from Florida State. So I just think I agree with you. LaShawn McCoy is doing way too much, and the more you make it about yourself, the less you take. The more you take away from the team. And like I say, man, LaShawn, he's been in the league far too long to be throwing hissy fits. He looked like he threw a little hissy fit for the Buffalo media. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the part of it that and I wonder too. Of course, Rex Ryan is kind of that maverick guy, that maverick kind of coach, and we've seen that. His name is I can't remember. The Bills general. I really admire him a lot, but I can't remember his name. The Bills general manager has shown that he's not a guy who's afraid to take chances with, wheeling and dealing and going after Sammy Watkins and what have you. But I do feel like that other teams and other coaches across the league are looking at this and thinking, thank God I don't have that head case on my team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most definitely. And like you just said, but you said it too. A Rex Ryan coach team, he I think Rex pushes this type of behavior, because look at Rex in his press conference. Rex is a wild card.
Yeah.
He'll say whatever comes to his mind. But it shows too. LaShawn McCoy, he'll never play for Bill Belichick. He'll never play for Pittsburgh. He'll never play for a head coach that's rock solid in his foundation. Let him know, listen, man, it's my way or nothing. I've had the best player. Bill Belichick Bill Belichick sent Randy Moss home because he was late to a meeting.
Yeah.
Silas Red had 4 touchdowns, 200 yards on Monday Night Football. You haven't seen him since. Yeah. So I believe that Herm Melvins comes from the old school from a standpoint of, listen, I'm the head coach, man. You ain't bigger than this team. And I believe because Rex doesn't not necessarily muzzle his players, but put more of a harder stance on what should and shouldn't be said. Listen, I just think it's only the beginning with a LaShawn McCoy or even somebody else on the team like LaShawn that feels as though what I say matters. So I'm going to say it. Forget what comes with it. I don't think these guys care about the consequences.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Chip Kelly, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is he going to run back to college? Kind of a very disappointing season. They did beat the Patriots. Big win there. But what's Chip Kelly's future?
I think Chip Kelly does go back to college eventually. Maybe they give him one more year to try to right the ship because he's not working with the same level of talent that he's had in the past. But at the same time, too, Chip Kelly to me has shown that the best he can do with it offense. You got to have athletic. I think you need athletic quarterbacks, and I don't see it in Bradford or Sanchez or Barkley or whomever he may have. And sometimes, man, like you say, you have to look at it and say, look. I tried my stance at the pros. It didn't work. I was given opportunity. It didn't work. But at the same time, too, I believe the Chip Kelly situation didn't work because he never let college go. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to say these are the pros. These are grown men. These aren't young men that you're trying to mold. These are grown men. You're trying to help you win games. And any college coach that has all the control. And you come to the NFL and you think, well, these guys need to do it my way. Like, no, man, these guys get paid. They have an opinion. They understand what their worth is. And I think, too, certain guys to me just belong in college. Steve Spurrier, great college coach. You never belong in the league. I think that's Chip Kelly might fit that mold, too, because he has a good offense, but your offense is not going to be scoring 50 against these defenses. That's disrespectful to a defensive coordinator who's paid to stop you. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that, while Chip Kelly is a good coach, he'll never reach great status in the NFL because people are not going to let that offense do what it wants to do week in and week out. It's like the Wildcat. Once people figure it out, you got to go. You got to move on to something else.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think teams have figured out Chip Kelly and his philosophy fantastic talent in college, but Sam Bradford has just not ever, first of all, he's not been healthy enough to show that he can be, but he's not ever performed as an NFL caliber quarterback. And that trade was head-scratching to me. I didn't get that. Of all the off-season moves, that was probably the one that I didn't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, Nick Foles for Sam Bradford, I didn't get it either. Nick Foles is on the bench now for St. Louis. Sam Bradford, he still has his health issues, and Sam Bradford gets the benefit of the doubt because of where he was drafted. Mm-hmm. You're the number one overall pick, and you've shown great ability, but he's also shown that he's injury prone. I mean, to me, Michael Vick has some of the best potential I've ever seen, but he's only played 16 games one season, or 13? I mean, the thing about it is, if you have a getting injured is not something you can control, unfortunately. And some guys just can't fight that injury bug. And it's just one of those things with Sam Bradford. It's like, listen, man, it's hard to play 16 games, especially in an offense like Chip Kelly, where they ask you to run a read option from time to time and different things. And Sam Bradford is a statue in that pocket. He don't got great ability to move around, so I don't see him thriving in a Chip Kelly offense. I don't see him thriving in an offense that doesn't utilize his talents to where he can get the ball out quicker. But at the same time, man, I mean, that's the thing about the NFL. You got to get in a system that utilizes your strength. And I don't see that with Sam Bradford. I don't see that with Sam Bradford in his offense at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Ben, I want to ask you before you get out of here, one of the, as you know, and my audience knows, that we talk sports here, but we talk a lot about other things too. And one of the things a discussion that I'm starting is a discussion about equality and whether it's a myth or a utopia. I think that it's a great concept. I just don't, as you get older and you have life experiences, you start to really look at things. And I just don't know whether it's possible. And what got me started thinking about this was the Herm Edwards thing and then the Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick thing, which in the larger scheme of things is really a very minor incident, but I think that it's a great means to have this conversation. And if you're listening, you're not familiar, Sarah Thomas is the first official, full-time female. She's a female line judge in the National Football League, and she is assigned to a crew that officiated the New England Patriots, Philadelphia Eagles game last weekend. And there was a photo that circulated around on Twitter that purported to show Bill Belichick with his arms. It looked like he had his arms on her shoulder. Now, the video is more telling, and it does not look like he ever physically touched her. Listen, touching a referee, touching an official in the National Football, in any sport, is taboo. You just don't do that. But he was definitely very much, up in her face and very close, and it did come across in a fairly intimidating manner. And so, you saw this, but I think what made me want to talk about this was the conversation around it. And the thing that I had a lot to say about this on Twitter, so many people came to me and said, you can't make this a gender issue. And I'm like, why not? She is a woman. Why do we have to pretend that she's not a woman? It's like...
Exactly.
When we're considering our experiences with other people, like Ben is a great guy. He's a guy who played football. You accord him the respect that is due him. Why do we ask women to pretend like they're not women? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh no, I definitely like the situation with Jacoby Jones, and he was doing an interview with Rachel Nichols, and after he said thank you. She said thank you, cutie. That little remark is not something he would do with a male. I think the Sarah Thomas situation to me happens because the NFL lets it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And to me, the greatest spokesperson for equality for women is Ronda Rousey, and the reason why she is because she says, listen, I'm a female and I like to beat people up, but I am myself. He said the thing about equality is, she said, they want women to fit the box of equality. They have made a box, and if you don't fit in it, you don't feel as though they don't feel as though a woman say, I'm not being, my equality is not being recognized. But Ronda Rousey says, listen, let me decide what my equality is. You as a man don't get to decide. I live in a male-dominated world, a male-dominated sports world. I am a female dominating in a male sport. I'm the biggest headliner. A female. And what happens with a Sarah Thomas is, I am in a male-dominated refereeing world. And so a Bill Belichick is shown doing something I've never seen him do with a male referee. I've never seen him do that. Does he get in their face? Yes. Does he even look like he's going to put their hands on him? No. He may put his hands up to try to get him to stop. And I think the Sarah Thomas situation, Sharon, shows us that these conversations have to be had. And how you know they have to be had is when somebody says, why are you going to make it? Well, why not? If it comes to my mind as, if it wasn't a gender situation, it wouldn't even pop in my mind like that.
Well,
it wouldn't even come,
Yeah, and I think, too, it ignores the fact that she can't respond to what happened in the same manner that a male counterpart might respond. You know, I mean, and Ed Hockley can respond in a different manner, or whoever. I mean, Guns is obviously the name that comes to mind. So, you know, I think I agree with you. I think that we need to have these conversations so that we understand, you know, as a society, where we are and what is equality? Is equality asking women to pretend like they aren't women and that they don't have this long history of, of being oppressed? I think women have been, women were treated as property, and as a white woman, I certainly have it a lot better than my minority sisters, and I understand that. I understand that I have privilege that, in that fashion. It's okay to talk about these things because if we're not honest,
you have to. I think you have to because you don't learn through assumptions. You learn through talking about it. I'd rather sit down with a person that don't think like me. That way we can share thoughts. Why you don't think like me. And I think, to answer your question, what equality is it's no competition. It's no comparison to this. The WNBA is not being compared to the NBA. It's like you got two different, a female referee is looked upon as a referee who just happens to be female. It's not, well, she's a female referee. No. She couldn't help the fact that she was a female no more than you can help the fact that you was a male. But what she can do is show. Even the young lady that was out there with Arizona as a coach, she got hired because she knows football, not because she's a female that knows it. No, she knows it. She just happens to be female. And I think the equality thing comes in with not that women can do what men can't do. No, women can do it, period. Not that I do what a man does. If I go to medical school and you go to medical school, we both get our doctorate degree. We're going to get our PhDs. It's not that, she got hers. They don't put you in a slot to say, well, this is the female side, male side. No, we got bathrooms for that. You can't go in mine, I can't go in yours. I understand that. But it's almost like with the situation with Sarah Thomas, it shows that you allow a certain behavior to go on for so long, it becomes normal. And you got to, and I think what a woman does is she said, listen, no more of this normality. This ain't normal no more. Nope. We're going to speak about it. It took Ray Rice video for the NFL to react to the domestic violence. If they don't see the video, it goes on. And that's the thing. It's like it has to be visual to where you can't lie about it. We see it, and the interpretation, goes with it, and you have to talk. I think it's great, man. I think Sarah Thomas does a great job because the thing about it is, if they don't say, Sarah Thomas is the first female, they make such a big thing about it. It's like, it is a great accomplishment. But once she's on that field, she's a referee, period. Respect her position and move on. But they can't. That's the thing. It's like, I could see Bill Belichick and Sarah, could you get another referee? I want to talk to him. Like she can't talk to him or something, which I don't know what the conversation was, but that's what the world does around us. And I think when it comes to equality, because I have a daughter, I don't want my daughter thinking, well, Daddy, I got to be able to compete with men. No, you don't. You compete with yourself. You don't have to. Do not listen. If you let the world decide what you're going to get, you're going to end up with far less than what you thought you're going to get anyway. You're going to end up with far less.
That's exactly right. That's
so
exactly
right. I like to listen. The Sarah Thomases, I'm going to tell you what really happened. The best shooters in the world are female because they can't dunk. So their fundamentals are better. DeAndre Jordan, if he had to shoot today, he couldn't play basketball because he can't. But he can dunk because he's 6'11". Whereas, listen, and I think what happens is, females come out of the womb being taught you cannot be average. You have to be a step above the rest. You cannot be, normal. And I think what it does is they put in their mentality, my preparation is better. My attention to detail is better because if I make the same mistake he makes, mine is going to be looked at bigger because he's a male and I'm a female. If I make a bad call, see there, Sarah Thomas, while she won't say it, she don't listen, I don't want to be looked at as a pioneer, but she is, even if she don't want to be. Because you're the first. You are the Jackie Robinson of this situation. And she knows the more, it's not how good she does. The more she can take and keep going, that's what'll make it so the next woman gets in. Because she's obviously good enough to do it. But the more she can take it, the more she takes it without, it's sad, but the more she can take without complaining, the next woman's on her way. And she'll tell her, listen, no matter what they say, you already got the job. You've already been hired. If they don't like what you say, that's on them. Make the call. Pick up the flag and tell them back up or I give you unsportsmanlike conduct. Get away from it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it is. Equality sometimes is gritting it and bearing it. You got to grit it and bear it, and you want to scream, but you got to just take it. And I think with Sarah, that's what I would tell her. Sometimes you got to just take it. It's sad, but
absolutely.
But I think she's doing a great job. And outside of that situation with her and Bill Belichick, I ain't heard nothing but good things from the people in the league about her.
Yeah.
She calls the game as she sees it, and she moves on.
She's been doing it a long time. She's definitely qualified for the job. Ben, always a pleasure. Tell everybody out there where they can find you on social media, and give a plug to your sports show. And what else is going on with you?
Oh, well, they can definitely follow me on Twitter at Ben Troupe 84. They can follow me on Instagram at Ben Troupe 84. I got my Huddlecast. Me and Max starts. It's called the Max and Ben Show. Go to huddlepass.com and just look for the Florida Huddle. And I'm just, I'm still doing my cameos with the NBC Sports Radio. I'm just trying to make sure people know that I'm out here, to let them know that, like I say, Sharon, you give me an opportunity to show people I'm a football player is what I've always been, but a person trying to get better and show people I got dialogue and great perspective is what I'm becoming on a day to day. And I like these conversations because it shows people that it's a lot. It's a big personality behind that football helmet. I thank God I was able to take it off, but they're able to see my face, hear my voice, and I'm just looking. And I'm obviously my nonprofit success is a journey, trying to just show these young people, man, that listen, if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to grit it and bear it, if you're willing to go through the bumps and the bruises, you can have exactly what you want in this life.
Yeah. Always an excellent talk with you, Ben. Have a great day. Thanks again for joining me.
Appreciate it.
All right, that was Ben Troupe, former Florida Gator and NFL tight end Ben Troupe. It's always such a pleasure to have Ben on. I'm so thankful that he is willing to donate his time to come on my show and talk about football and talk about hot topics. We've had a discussion about Black Lives Matter. He's always a very thoughtful and just such a great guest to have on. So very, very, very thankful to have him on this morning. Up next, Jennifer Eakins. We'll talk some Denver Broncos. We'll talk about Peyton Manning and his future. And is Brock Osweiler the answer? So stay tuned in. You're listening to Back Talk with Sharona.
Welcome back. As promised, I'm joined now by my favorite and yours, Jennifer Eakins, our Denver Broncos correspondent. We like to talk about Peyton Manning here because, he still does carry godlike status here in the great state of Tennessee. And the Broncos are doing so well, but, Peyton, quote, unquote, injured. So, Jennifer, thanks again for joining me. Always a pleasure to have you. So what's up? What's going on? Is Peyton Manning done? What is Peyton Manning's future?
That's an excellent question, Sharona. His immediate future, I think he's done for right now. I mean, I think that, he, as you said in the intro, his quote-unquote injury, supposedly he's coming back from it. It's such a tough situation for everybody involved. I mean, I know, Coach Kubiak is kind of trying. It's a delicate balance. You've got, a future Hall of Famer here who, is obviously on the decline, and his injury was, somewhat convenient, I believe. I mean, he was obviously struggling. I mean, it was so painful. It was painful for everybody involved. I mean, it was just painful. And, now you've got Brock who, I hate the expression the hot hand because everybody uses it, but, that's the case at the moment. I mean, he's playing well, I mean, he's not, we can get into that in a little bit, but he's playing well enough. I mean, with him under center, they're 3-0, and they won, a few tough games. I think Peyton, if it was up to me, I would keep him on the sidelines and I would keep him, kind of for his brain for now, to get to the playoffs. I mean, he's the best football mind, or arguably the best football mind out there. And, you know, you can have him, you know, now granted, he's not going to do that willingly. We all know how he is. But I think he is, and he's still, and there's a few records left out there that I believe he still wants, you know, and so I know, you know, to have him stay in the sidelines, especially when he is, you know, quote unquote healthy, is going to be difficult. But I think it's the right course of action. I think
it is.
You know, keeping him on the sidelines, you know, for his brain, you know, according to Brock, you know, he was key in making, you know, really good halftime adjustments against the Patriots, and you know, keeping him there for that. And then obviously, you know, there is, you know, the possibility that Brock could get hurt, or Brock could just be, you know, really, really performing horribly, you know, come playoff time, and then Peyton could be fresh and get out there. I just think, you know, from a fan perspective, you know, just watching Brock out there and not having to completely cringe every time he goes back to throw is such a relief. I mean, we were all, as we said, it's so painful. To kind of watch Peyton, and to watch every time he went back to throw, it was just like, oh no, you know, you were expecting a pick, you know, you were expecting, you know, and Brock can also, you know, he can scramble a bit. He can get you those three yards, you know, even though he is 6'8" and looks like a praying mantis out there. He still, you know, he has some wheels for as big as he is, and you know, Peyton couldn't get half a yard if he needed to, you know, so.
The turnovers were big, and, you know, I don't think that Brock turned the ball over at all, has he?
Yeah, he threw one interception last game.
Okay.
But I believe that's it, you know. And he's, I mean, I say he's young. He's not young in age. I mean, he's 25, but he's, you know, he just hasn't had a lot of experience. I mean, Peyton just didn't allow it, you know, in all those years. I mean, even though last season he was hurt for the last quarter of the season, he refused to sit down, you know, and so Brock just really hasn't had the real-life experience, you know, that he should have at this point in his career. So, you know, he's learning on the job, you know, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. You know, it's not I don't know the actual numbers of where they sit production-wise the last, you know, 3 games, but, you know, it's definitely, you know, I mean, they've won all 3 games with him under center, so I think that's kind of how you have to go from here on out.
It seems pretty obvious that Brock runs Kubiak's offense better than Peyton did, and there are a lot of reasons for that. You mentioned some of them. Jennifer and I took a look at an article about Brock. I think that, first of all, most teams want their quarterback just to be able to manage the game. You know, if your team is relying on your quarterback to win games for you, you probably don't have a very good football team. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and so I think that you know, I think that they're doing a brilliant job, really, of managing the situation and putting Brock in situations to be successful.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, like I said, with him, you know, having as little experience as he had, I mean, real-life snaps were, you know, a minimal before, you know, they threw him in there. And I think for what is expected of him at this point, I think he's doing a great job, you know, and as, you know, that article, I mean, just to, you know, preface the article that we read, I mean, it is Mark Kisla, and he is, you know, he is known for
being trolling.
Yeah, I mean, he just is, you know, and I don't know if that's really what, you know, his thought process was with that article, but I think that, you know, he's just.
Well, I couldn't disagree more. I don't think that they need to take. I think that they're doing exactly what they should do. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's had his fair share of long balls. I mean, you know, maybe not as many as some other quarterbacks, but he's thrown them up there, you know, and I think as he gets more comfortable in the offense and as he gets more comfortable, you know, being the starting quarterback, you know, of an NFL team, I think that'll come, you know, and I think, you know, the Broncos are dealing with a lot of injuries right now, you know, maybe not necessarily offensively. Most of them are defensively, but still, I mean, except for the running back position, I mean, both Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson are hurt right now. So, you know, they're going to, you know, the fact that he's in there, and I think he'll, you know, we'll see what happens, you know, this Sunday. I mean, they get the Raiders, which, you know, the Raiders are kind of, you don't know who's going to show up.
Which Raiders team. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I think based on what's asked of him, I think he's doing a brilliant job, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and granted, Yeah, and he's in a contract year. I mean, he's a free agent after this year. So.
Oh, is he? Okay, wow.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that he's, for his sake, he's making some money right now. I mean, because if the Broncos don't keep him, someone else.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. Because coming into the season, that was kind of the chatter. Like, what are they going to do with Brock? They don't even know what they have in him, and his contract's up. And he's an unrestricted free agent. So it's like I'm happy for him. He sat there and he's held a clipboard for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Really
really nice for him.
Could be the next Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. Who just he sat there quietly and he hasn't complained in these 5 years. And he's just kind of, and I'm sure he's learned a tremendous amount from Peyton. How do you not?
Right.
As far as having a teacher and having a person there for the last 5 years, I can't imagine a better scenario for him, really.
Right.
To get in there and kind of do his own thing now. So I'm excited about his future. I'm excited to see what happens. And I'm excited to see about the rest of the season. I mean, it's one of those weird years where a lot of teams really aren't that good. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see if the Broncos can make a run with Brock, just solely with him managing the game and their defense. I mean, it's been done before, so.
I will say this, though. I will go on record saying that I will definitely cry, if not sob, if Peyton Manning wins another Super Bowl ring as the backup.
Like sob, like happy tears or sad tears?
Sad tears. I mean, happy in a way.
I know.
It will gall him if that happens.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I can't even imagine what is going to happen in that scenario, when he is truly, quote unquote, all the way healthy, if he kind of, I don't know what they're going to do with him.
It's going to be crazy.
Whether I don't know. People talked about them doing like a split situation where Brock is in there for the majority and then Peyton comes in for the red zone, and it's like, there's been a lot of talk about that because I think somehow his numbers are more this season are more efficient in the red zone than Brock. I don't really know how that's possible because they weren't scoring anything with Peyton in there, but people have talked about that scenario and it's like, no way, like that can't happen, unless Brock gets hurt or he's truly struggling, I think Peyton, may have to take a back seat here. I don't know. I mean, they've been very, very quiet about it, and I know Peyton has been back to work, and it's been very quiet. In fact, it was kind of, I think it was yesterday, or no, it might have been Wednesday. Peyton was throwing indoors close to the media, so there was all this hubbub around town. They're not showing anything. They don't know what's going on, and I don't know. It's it's very hush hush as far as Peyton goes, and Kubiak's been very quiet about it, which is the right thing to do. They'll kind of see, I guess. I mean, he doesn't want to. I don't know. He doesn't want to really, I guess, commit one way or the other, which kind of makes sense too. So I guess we'll have to kind of see what happens.
Yeah, Denver sports coverage is pretty interesting to me. After I saw that article that we just talked about, the next article that I stumbled across was one talking about Britton Colquitt not pulling his weight. He's the punter, of course, and from Tennessee. And I was like, what? So anyway, it's kind of crazy. What do you expect from the playoffs this year?
I'd like to see success. I'd like to see them. You mean just the Broncos or the playoffs in general?
Well, from the Broncos and in general.
Yeah, it really depends. If they can hang on and get home field advantage, then, that could be really, beneficial, obviously. You've got, especially in the AFC, you've got a really bizarre Patriots team right now, It's like you don't even know who's there, who their weapons are, that, they can actually, but somehow, it's the Patriots, and we know they're going to be there. You have the Bengals that are playing really well. Then you have, like, the Chiefs that are kind of emerging. And it's just a weird, the Steelers, of course, as well. I think the Broncos, if they can hang on and end up somehow with home field advantage, I think they're going to, they may make it. I don't know. I hate to say, like, I don't know. Because they have the pieces. They have the necessary pieces to get there. I mean, their defense is ridiculous. They need to get healthy. They definitely need to get healthy, but
what's up with Danny Trevathan? Is he going to be to play this weekend?
I think so. I haven't heard much about him.
Okay.
As far as I know, I don't know. I haven't seen what's going on with him, and I think DeMarcus Ware is going to be ready to go.
Oh, good.
As well.
Good.
He's been practicing, and I think but they have Talib is out, and and so they had, in fact, they had to. I don't know if you remember, they signed Christian Ponder.
Yes, I saw they released him though, right?
They released him because they had to sign a corner. They've had some. Or was it a safety? Now I can't remember. My brain is a little fried this morning. But they're trying to kind of beef up and get some depth because I believe there were 21 guys on the injury report.
Wow, crazy.
Now and some of them might have been very, very minor, but there were 21 on there, and I know that's a lot. So they need to get healthy. But I think they have the pieces, and like the punting. I mean, we laugh about that. But it's kind of key because if you can get a decent punt, the Broncos defense is gonna stop them. You know what I mean? But if you give them good field position, then they have a better chance of scoring. Obviously, there's standard football, But I think we laugh at the punt game, but it's kind of key in these situations.
It is. It's important. I don't mean to suggest it's not.
No, and everybody kind of laughs at the punter situation, but in order to keep you want to keep. You want to keep, obviously, the other team from scoring, and you want to keep the Broncos defense, give them the best possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. We're going to maybe jump around a little bit this morning. I want to ask you about LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly, and what Herm Edwards had to say. But before you get out of here, I definitely want to talk some SEC football. But let's stick with the NFL for right now. The LaShawn McCoy... Lord, I can't talk this morning. The LaShawn McCoy, Chip Kelly situation, I suppose in some respects it's kind of funny. Did you have a chance to hear or see Herm Edwards rant about that?
I did. I watched the video. I happen to not like Herm Edwards to start with, so for me it's just like, that was crazy. I mean, he was just going off. He was threatening to walk out. If I didn't work here, I'd walk out. I mean, I understand old school football guys. They can't deal with the social media aspect of football, and I get it. It's you know what I mean, and it's real. I mean, we can't. There's nothing we can all do about it. It's in it's in the fabric of society at this point. There's nothing we can all do about it, and I get it. I mean, you have to. McCoy. I mean. He probably should have toned down some of the things he said, but I still agree with it. I mean, I still agree with, he got done wrong, and he's, I like the guy, and I think, all of us, as we watch what's happening with the Eagles, it's tough to really side with it. It's like, dude, you got rid of everybody, and now you suck, and you're trying to run this weird college offense. In the pros, it's not working, you got rid of, and every guy he got rid of, it's actually thriving. I mean, Macklin is doing really well, in Kansas City. McCoy's doing great, you got Deshaun Jackson. But he got rid of all these key pieces and just because, and then, I don't know. And so for Herm to kind of, I don't know, it was kind of crazy. You could see the other guys on set were like, holy, what the hell is he doing? I mean, he was going off, and I'm not a big fan of his to begin with, so. I kind of side with the McCoy side of it. But I do see that these guys do need to control themselves on social media. It's hard because you can't undo it. I mean, once it's out there, it's out there. You can delete it all you want, but someone already has it, and you have to you got to watch what you say, and you have to be respectful, of the league. But the whole, Herm's whole thought process was the team, and I'm just over that. I mean, I understand that that's what they're there for, but he's allowed to be hurt. He's allowed to be pissed off that he got done wrong, and he's allowed to express it.
Yeah. This is just one of the many reasons, you guys, why I love having Jennifer on, because there's a lot of times that we just don't agree about things, but we can have a very layered discussion about it. I completely agree with Herm Edwards. I said earlier I would not want LaShawn McCoy on my football team. I think that he is the epitome of the entitlement generation. He definitely got done wrong. Chip Kelly has admitted that the situation was not handled correctly, that it should have been handled much differently and much better. But LaShawn McCoy needs to just shut the fuck up. I'm so tired of hearing him bitch about it. I am.
Well, we'll see what he does, on the field this weekend. Hopefully, it's his revenge game. It's his, that's where, like you say, he needs to shut up on social media and make it happen on the field,
Just shut up and play. Dude, just get over it. Get over it. Get over yourself and just play football, whatever. So, I want to ask you about one of the themes of this show. We're talking about equality. We've talked about that in the first couple of segments. The Sarah Thomas, Bill Belichick thing is fascinating to me, not necessarily because of what happened, but because of the conversation around it. And as things go, it kind of hit a nerve with me because I had so many people tell me that that we couldn't talk about this from a gender perspective because I'm not sure why. I do know why. I think, it's a baffling but real thing that in so many areas women are asked to check their womanhood at the door, before they enter. And you can't talk about the fact we recognize who we're dealing with in so many other areas, right? But to say, well, she's a woman, it just has from a perspective, it has a detrimental aspect to it. I think Jennifer knows what I'm trying to get at here. And my thing is I don't think that we can discuss this and ignore the fact that Sarah Thomas is a woman.
Well, that's the only reason that we're talking about this, right? I mean, if it was, at least that's what, from my perspective, when I don't know that it would have even been an issue if it was a man. I don't know, but I think it's interesting because once again, we may disagree on this because I watched the Vine over and over and he doesn't actually touch her.
No, he doesn't touch her. No, it's fairly innocuous. It is. I completely agree.
Yeah, so part of me is like, well, why are we even talking about this? But then again, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm kind of torn here because I feel like if it was, Hockey or whatever, it just would have never, or maybe it would have been brought up. I don't know. It's tough. And on the other side, if it was a different coach.
It would have been, Bill acting like a bunghole again or something,
Right.
Look at Bill. And he is, right? I think
right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If it's another coach, I don't even know that we're talking about this either, because he's always up in the ref's face and he's always screaming at refs. And he's, same with his quarterback. Brady does the same thing. They're always arguing everything, on the field, every play, every flag. They're always arguing with the refs. So if it was like, Harbaugh or something, I don't know that we'd even be having this conversation. And then couple it with it being a woman that he, I think it's just, it makes for a story. I'm proud to see her out there. I will say that, and I feel like that didn't even get. Because actually, honestly, I didn't even know this happened. And then I somehow missed it, over the weekend. And I didn't even, I don't know.
Well, there was a picture. It was very misleading, floating around on social media. It looked like he had his arms on her shoulders, right?
Right.
And so that kind of started the discussion. But I'd like you to actually watch the clip of it. And the photo definitely makes it look a lot more sinister than what it is, and it's not necessarily the incident itself. It's how we're talking about it that's what fascinates me, and of course, that's something that does fascinate me. We talk about that a lot on here, so it's really interesting. The whole topic of equality is something that I'm going to want to be talking about, but I can't let Jennifer get out of here. We're both big SEC fans. Huge changes at the University of Georgia.
I'm heartbroken.
I know you are. My heart broke for you. It really did, even though I did think it was time.
And I agree with that, but I just, it's funny because everyone it's such a difficult position because I'm just as frustrated as the next person on the lack of next level that the University of Georgia has gone to. I mean, trust me, I've been a fan for 25 years, and we've never gotten to that next level. It's always, and there's such every year the expectation.
Just close.
And every year it's preseason rankings, top 10. Georgia this year is going to be the year. And then they lose. Then there's 2 losses, and there we are. Every year, and so I get that. But at the same time, like when I was there, when I was a student there, it was a grim time. I mean, grim. The 90s were so bad, and I think people forget how poorly, the recruiting was and just the play on the field before Rick got there. I mean, I think people are so used to it. He's been there for a long time in college football years.
15 years.
That's like 80 years in college football, it's a long time. And I think people forget how bad it was before that, and it just scares me. I mean, I'm okay with the Kirby Smart hire. Like, I'm fine with it. I'm worried, I'm worried that we're going to end up like in the basement, like below Vanderbilt or something. God forbid, it makes me really nervous. And I'm sure you as a Tennessee fan and the rest, I'm sure you guys are thrilled, that we're going to be in some turmoil and it's just, and then you have other, you've got South Carolina, that has no,
well, I talked about that hire with Ben Troupe, and it's head scratching to me. I mean, I understand. Well, it's probably a bigger name than Sean Elliott, but I would have just removed the interim tag from Sean Elliott. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you there. It's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a part of me. I mean, I was really pissed and I was really sad. Now I'm like, okay, let's see what can happen. Georgia had one of the best recruiting classes for this year, and now are they all going to go, are they going to go to Miami? I mean, and that's another thing for me personally. Like, I grew up in Miami, and, I absolutely hate the Hurricanes, like, with every little fiber in my soul.
So are you going to follow Rick to Miami and play?
I can't, and it's hard, and it's weird. I tweeted this, when it all went down. It's like my weird college football world, it's like all weird and incestuous. It's like I live in Colorado, right? No, I mean, seriously, like I live in Colorado. So last year, McElwain goes to Florida, which is the other hatred of my life. And then Bobo comes out here to Colorado State, which is weird enough. And then now you've got Rick going to Miami, which is where I grew up, and it's such a weird little.
It is. Wow.
For me personally, yeah. It's like this carousel within like my own personal like rivals, and it's really, really weird.
They're just playing with your emotions now.
They are. I mean, they are. It's like I would have loved for Bobo. Well, not really. I shouldn't say that. For Bobo to go back, but he seems to be doing well here. People really like him.
Okay.
I was very critical of him when he was at Georgia, when he was the coordinator. So I can't really. Yeah. I mean, but it's
Why didn't they hire Pruitt? I thought Pruitt would have been the better choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have no idea how that process went. It was pretty quick, I mean, they, Rick was out and, I don't know. I'm not sure how. I don't know if there was really a pool of people that they went through, or they knew all along they were going to hire Smart before they even fired Rick.
No, I think that they had targeted Smart way before. I think that was the thing. Yeah.
And that's, as we know in the SEC, it's a good old boy network anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You don't, it's like they're not just going to just hire a random that's worthy from a different conference or from, you have to have some sort of Southern tie, preferably to your own school, before they'll. I mean, Rick, that was kind of random. I mean, they got him from Florida State, it's like, whoa. But, it'll be interesting to kind of see. I mean, it's a pretty level playing field, especially in the East, for next year. It'll be, I'm ready to start fresh and see what happens. I mean, Tennessee's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, the SEC is going to be very interesting over the course of the next few years. It's exciting times. I know I'm excited and nervous, and I suspect LSU fans and Georgia fans and, a lot of other fans are as well, because a lot of changes out there. Jennifer, it's always such a pleasure to have you on. Tell everybody.
I know, it's been a while. Thanks for having me.
But we're going to do this more often, and obviously Peyton Manning, that topic is not going to go away anytime soon. Tell everybody where they can find you in the Twitter sphere, and what are you working on?
Twitter, I am at the Monday Mommy. And I am working on some random stuff. Right now, I am actually working. I just recently started working for Bo Scaife, who is a former Tennessee Titan, for those of you out there. And I'm doing some work for him for his site and his foundation and stuff. So I'll be writing a bunch of stuff for him. So I will. His site is called freshedlife.com. And it's a great organization and a great cause. He's basically trying to help the transition from either pro athletes or college athletes kind of to get to the next level and what happens after and what do you do. And it's a great resource for people out there that are looking to do that. So I will be
very awesome.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, Bo's a great guy, tight end for. It's funny. I had Ben Troupe on this morning, and so yeah, very funny. Jennifer, thanks again. So much fun talking to you. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too, Sharona. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Jennifer Eakins. We went over a little bit this morning, but that's all right. Great show. Big shout-out to Lisa London, Ben Troupe, and Jennifer Eakins for joining me this morning. I do appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. We'll be back next week. Typically do a Monday and Wednesday schedule, but we're not going to be doing a Monday show. We may go to Tuesday and Thursday, or maybe even Wednesday and Friday. We'll let you guys know about that. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and stay cool out there.